Alright, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Brian Cohen, one of the organizers, along with Chris May, who's also the founder, and Adam Emery has also stepped up to be an organizer recently. So we have three of us. First Tuesday of the month is lecture night, which usually Chris brings in a speaker. Third Tuesday of the month is coding night, which is what I've been running for a couple years now. And lately we've been working on a blackjack game. Are you guys familiar with the game blackjack? Okay. So just working on kind of coding it up as just an example. We've been working through it for a couple months, getting as far as we can. And Chris and I have learned about a bunch of different strengths and weaknesses of the ensemble programming style, which is you'll have someone standing here dictating what changes need to be made to the code. You'll have someone sitting there who's the typist, who's actually just typing the code, just doing what the navigator here is telling them. And then you have the ensemble who will chime in and offer their thoughts and insights. And every 4 minutes, is that what or 5, whatever? 4, okay. We'll have the timer going, so every 4 minutes, the typist will be relieved, the navigator will become the typist, and then someone from the ensemble who has an opinion on things will come up here and keep progressing the code. So that this didn't run for a whole year, today I went through and kind of brought the game up to a working level. I guess I can show what we're at now. Chris, how do I just run this file? Just one file? Yeah. Which file? Jack? Jack, yeah. Double click, or yeah, double. We both figures to click on. Cool. I'm just saying version control. That is actually. Whoa. Can you program number of players 0? Player default to 1. So let's say there's 2 players. Now it'll tell you player 1 has a value of 13, between 3, player 2 has a 17, and it only reveals the dealer's top card. So for 13, I'm going to hit. You can see that player busted. This player outside stands. And then see who won. So it's a playable game, and there's a ton more that into it. But the problem is, I realize I'm kind of diving in without any other announcements, but we'll get to them before we start the rotation. In here, you'll see a couple use statements where I'm like, hey, this is the best kind of code that we have. So evaluate hand, maybe that can be part of the actual player class down here. We've been discussing player versus dealer a lot, so spread the heck of it. I made a dealer class, but this is almost identical to the player refactor. And then down here, this is just one nasty function. Mm-hmm. And there's plenty of opportunity to refactor that. And then we have a bunch of tests over here. We're going to run through them in a moment. But, so the test will help us know if we mess something up in our refactoring, and also there should be, like this function here to test whether or not the dealer should hit where stand. We can't access that information with how the code is written right now, so maybe we can refactor something to make that work. So the goal is to get as far as we can on this, and I have a working copy of after that's in a different branch on the repo. I haven't pushed it up yet, but I'll do that in a minute. So if we get stuck, we can always take a look at that as what I had in my head, but that doesn't mean that's the best way or anything. Before getting to the vacation, your announcements.
Sure, yeah. So two things. One, I think everybody should have a post note and a pen. We're going to save some time at the end of the session to do a light retrospective. So that essentially my thought is like during the session, you can write down any observations you have, things you'd like to share, questions you might have, things you think we could improve on this, things you might have learned, anything like that. We just want to share our observations because we all have different points of view. Like we could all be, you know, enlightened, I guess, by hearing from other people's point of view. There's a lot of blind spots that we all have. So I'll kind of, my phone's gonna make a loud alarm, and at that point, if you don't have anything written down, start writing down, I'll start collecting them, so we can put on the board and just read through them. Number two, I recently came back from January, and it really hit me hard when you have to go conference. It becomes painfully obvious how wonderful community is, especially the Python community. Python has one of the best programming communities in the world. Here we have a really wonderful community, but I want to do a couple things. One, make this community better. So any ideas you have during retrospective or any time, let me know. Let us know. We'd like to have that. We'd like to do more socials, stuff like that. Those are some ideas. Number two, I want you all to be able to experience it too. So I want to promote some conferences that are coming up. The biggest one that I can think of that I know of that's coming up is ICON, which is going to be in Pittsburgh this year in May. And so the end of the year is usually when businesses make their budgets for conferences and stuff next year. So this is a perfect time to talk to your boss about maybe going to ICON next year. I shouldn't know if they have prices up. They probably do. ICON US. I'll have to look that up. So, want to put that out there. And then third, I don't see too many laptops, and QR code isn't the best for a laptop, but this PyCharm program is hosting a Code With Me session. So if you join the URL, which if there's another way I can post the URL, if anybody's interested, you can go to it and join us, the coding thing, so you can kind of look through the code when you're on your computer. Also Discord. Well, yeah, but same. I'll put it in Discord. In fact, speaking of community, if you're not in Discord, I will share the URL for our Discord community as well. That'd be great. I guess that.
Yeah. Things we can talk about the next meeting. Actually, if you want to talk about, go with that.
Oh, yeah.
So admin code is a coding challenge every year in the summer. And on the Discord, I've made an announcement, giving away a gift card for admin code for people that participate for 10 days. So I'll be making for posts for each day, discussing about solutions, and then go to a general topic, which is hopefully people participate. Yeah. During that time. Hopefully make it an RDA community thing.
Quick run through, we just covered, we're gonna be working on, blackjack. And we're gonna be rotating people through, the navigator front, saying what changes need to be made. So the typist over here, typing, and then the ensembles can be helping out, and we're gonna rotate in 20 minutes. So you can see how the group goes and jump in if you want. Any questions before we start? What I might do real quick is just go through an overview of the flow of the code, just so we're all kind of up to some sense of what's there. And then I might volunteer to be the architect and make Chris be the first navigator, just so you can see the flow and you know, so that you're not like immediately stuck with like, I've never seen this code before. So those of you who aren't familiar with test-driven development, on the right side we have all these tests we can run. Very simple one, like, you know, we create instantiate a game, you know, we get a hand, and then we assert that the length of the blackjack hand is 2 cards. You can run this, and you can see that the test passed. Or we can run all of them, and
So when you did that, you can notice at the very top, it says specifically run that one thing, so you can, yeah.
so you can see all these tests passed, with the exception of a couple that are kind of skipped because they're not really implemented. But we have tests to make sure, you know, we didn't get the same card twice. The right number of cards in the deck. So this is actually initiating with 52 cards, or 2 go to the player, 2 go to the dealer, which means it's 48 left in the deck. Some stuff for scoring. If you're given these cards, then here's a score. So we're testing a couple of different configurations of the aces to make sure that they all get evaluated correctly. Then some play through with some predefined actions to make sure, you know, when the player hits, they get 3 cards in their hand instead of 2. So there's that. So it's kind of in the test file. In the main file, we're using this library called deck, DECK, which basically gives you some utilities for a deck card. That way we just didn't have to program all that logic ourselves. But here's the value, or the function that will determine the score of your hand. So we'll take in a hand, which is a list of cards. Another thing I did is go through and and this should be working passing tests, and we don't necessarily need to refactor logic in there unless we really want to. But then we have a player class, and I'll go through that in a bit. A dealer class, which basically says pretty much the same thing as the player with a few tweaks to it. One thing that might not be super intuitive, and as I was working through more refactoring, I realized it's not the best, but I have this self.current, which is really only used to indicate whether or not it's the dealer's turn, and it should reveal the extra card. So it's really just for not revealing that card at the very beginning of the game. So if we get confused as to what that means, that's what that's really there for. And then we have the game class. So the game class will initialize with a deck. It's going to shuffle it. This right here is just for testing purposes. We can pass in a predetermined deck like we have over here, so that we can control the state of the game for testing purposes. But then it will create players, and then it will add a dealer that will also get its hand. The get hand just deals your initial hand of 2 cards, which just calls deal. And then this monster loop play. Defined actions is, again, like, we can pass in a sequence of things that we want to happen if we know the cards to hit and stand on, just so that you know, control it on the test side, that's not going to be as necessary for the actual execution during the game. This will print just a quick summary of the players and the card we have showing. This can loop through each player. If we've defined actions, then we'll go through that, but we shouldn't do that too much gameplay. This is intentionally bad. Basically saying the dealer being the last player in the game. And trying to figure out, what it should do. And if it's not the dealer, everyone's gonna ask the player to do. If they hit, they're gonna get another card. If they stand, it's just gonna say, cool. If you enter something wrong, it's just say, hey, we don't know what that means, and prompt you again. Calculate if you've busted, and then at the end of the game, we'll print out the summary of who's won, who's lost. So yeah, let's kind of run through code. I guess we can go through player class real quick. We have the property is bust, so basically if you go up 21, you lose no matter what. Made some stuff for kind of printing in the terminal, so this will just give their name. Score really just calls evaluate hand. Hint, that could be a refactor. This just kind of makes the cards pretty when it is in the terminal. State will basically just give you the score and the cards. And the string will just kind of print the name and then the state. So I'll show you what that all means in here. So let's say there's 2 players. So like this is the player name, this is the player state, and these are the cards. So I'm just gonna stand. That logic's wrong.
I was gonna say, why is it saying there's a type prototype stand is in the action?
Up here, I didn't actually type in S, I just gave it a blank by accident. And I did that twice, so that's what that is.
I wasn't sure if it was, if everybody's just improper.
No, it was, I just didn't give it an input, so it said, I don't know what to do. Oops.
Did we find it bug because it said both players won and the other guys won?
Yes, we did. Because they definitely were not. So that's another thing we can fix. All right. With that, any other questions on the code before we start the rotation?
Rotation needs to be a half.
I know that. I know that. But you can say, hey, it's my turn, ask a question. Change it. So you can, hey, what's the question? Yeah. Well, this line right here comes to that. Alright. Start the clock.
We'll start the timer.
There is some annotation.
What's that?
Saying annotations, but there's not these annotations.
And that's the important point. Like, so this is about learning, right? So if you have questions, please ask them, because there are no stupid questions. Chances are somebody else here has the same question you have. and isn't too afraid to ask. And we love to help people learn. So don't feel bad. And are there any particular annotations that you're not
The
sure?
data class and property annotations. I just have to do something. Annotations are essentially functions that are defined somewhere else that are wrappers around. So they like a property function. And before your that state all property function, and then call your state. So it's kind of interesting because it breaks, it makes you be able to define functionality on that function. Like you could say data class, well, data class is wrapped in this class, so you get some other things that are part of the data class function and how it's defined. It's so in the case of the property, it basically says now I have the class with this property field. I can say,
Would it help if each, click on one of the usages?
yeah, like state, or you can say
Oh,
like
right above it? And then, yeah. So the easiest way to, what he's saying is, this is usually a function, but if it has a property decorator, you don't have to add the parentheses to call it like a function. It acts like a property of the player.
Yeah, but then you know, behaves like that while having, it's able to behave like that without, because a lot of functions can be called without necessarily using not necessarily using parentheses anyway, if it has an empty set of parameters. But that's actually pretty cool on, so it's able to use.
You're not quite right, not in Python. If you,
Sorry, I'm still thankful job.
no, yeah, that's cool, but yeah.
Yeah, me too.
So yeah, so essentially, yeah, like if, let's say for example, do we have another function with?
So, I mean, an example, before you can declare dot and, right? You can see there's properties there, the current and of both properties together. So the difference is bus is a function call, it means that you are evaluating, you are creating something that is evaluated using call. Instead of like a hand is pointer to the list. So the void is going to be that list. And current is what is going to be a boolean. So it's just like the property function lets you create something dynamic as if it's not.
That makes sense? Okay, cool.
But often more generic. No, for decorators like this, like if you're building a web app and one of the person page, you would have a function that returns your page. You could use a decorator, say, hey, only do that if the person logged in. So instead of writing that logic function, you can write a decorator and just decorate each function.
Right. I've used Spring Boot before.
Magic.
Yeah, pretty much.
You can treat it like it's magic and then that's fine too.
But it's, yeah.
I didn't really know it for 5 years, so. A lot of the ones that are built in the cloud.
In I am thinkers to basically define the endpoints and URL strings for the function, and it binds the function to that URL and the URL.
Spring Boot is something very similar.
That said, where the heck do I start?
The timer.
Oh, and it dropped.
I'm not gonna sit here forever.
All right, timer started.
Yeah, you call you homework
Yeah, I don't know where to start. I mean, I see that there's a to-do there about making this class is almost identical to player, but I don't know how it's different.
Inherited.
I think you always scroll.
That's true. Um,
Or I can tell you basically the differences.
that sounds great.
So for the player, we have an ID in the hand. The ID is an integer, so you can see player one, player two, yada, yada, yada. And the dealer has the hand and it's current because the named property just returns dealer for the dealer, whereas the named property up here returns player and then the ID. And like I said, that current bit only really, or also like score, we'll just call it evaluate hand with the player's hand because it's always visible. But down here, the player's hand might not be fully visible, so revealed card equals just the first.
No, interesting.
And so it evaluates that, so that's what the other players will make their decisions based off of.
Okay, so out of all that, what I heard is there should be a hand class. Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, I'm having a hard time trying to figure out what to do. Like, I need a direction. I need to know why we should refactor.
There's a lot of duplicated effort.
Sure, but it all works, and that's where I'm having a hard time. It's like, what can we do to kind of say, like, is there a way that we want this to grow to kind of help us see how?
Wasn't there an example of something not working?
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, is there a way we can find that bug? That's a good question.
Yeah.
So it's probably that piece.
So
right
can we
there.
create a test that replicates that?
Did it actually, print the string to valid action when you put in nothing for
Yeah.
understand? It did,
Yeah, when I accidentally hit enter without the S, yeah.
it did say that.
Yeah.
So,
So here's,
they didn't, but the dealer got a higher score, and then at 21, and it said they won.
so here's a stub of a test that we can work on. And then similar for, so higher, lower, and high.
Okay. Player wins a higher score. Okay, so let's go ahead and erase pytest.mark.fail. And let's run our tests.
What?
Oh, I've got Vim. Keep on.
It's like, am I going crazy or what?
So that I can't really go to the right.
Oh, no,
So this is.
So it's saying no longer.
I'll go ahead and do another rotation.
Yeah, and just because this is, gonna be a little tricky, just for getting the test set up. So this initial deck, just take a list of cards. And I set this up where here's the player, and here's the dealer's cards. But let me,
It would, in the list, which one is the dealer? Is the dealer's always the last one in the list?
how do I
Hit-
not break?
Hit A again.
Okay,
There you go. There you go.
cool.
Sorry, I didn't I miss
That's
it.
it, the dealer is always the last one in the list.
Correct.
Is that okay?
So we have that, and then 0. Dot score. Very kind of same score. Just a little bit of formatting.
Okay.
I'm quite my favorite term.
So you're setting deck, so the first person will get 10 and 8, and then the next person will get 10 and 8. Is that the way the deal works? Deals two?
Yeah, it's supposed to deal the first two to the first player, the next two to the next player, and so forth.
Yeah, so
So
the initial deck's been set for players.
Yeah.
And then the first player will get 10 8, the next player will get 10 8, so then the rest of it is checking that through the city. Yeah.
So run that one. That's fair. That's good.
All the suits are spades.
Oh,
Doesn't matter.
yeah, this is another issue with how I have it coded in here. Game players. Yeah, current. It's true. Let's say non-obvious. Because I defaulted to also it doesn't show that one. That's why you have to do that.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Well, let me do one little improvement. What's the wait? I can't think of what it's called. Make a little improvement that will help us. Change players -1. So between the two dots,
Here.
all of them, one of them. Let's do one to start. So get rid of the whole thing. Players negative the player between the two dots, and replace it with dealer. Okay, now run it to make sure it fails, which it should. Cool. Now go into your game. Well, let's just do one. Let it.
Should I make this deal as well?
I was going to try to get it done because I only have a minute left. Now, outside of the init function, create a new function called dealer. Maybe I have to do the A again. I don't know why. I should. And then decorate that with a property decorator. And then inside of it, do return self.players -1. There we are. Now let's run to see if it'll work. Yay, cool. Now you can replace that one. Oh, again, you have to, I don't know why. I'm gonna have to probably restart PyCharm because I thought I disabled it. Looked like I had them disabled. So that'll help us a little bit. I have 12 seconds. Any questions while I'm up standing?
What did you just do?
What did I do? Perfect. So, and I'll say more to the reason why I did it, and then I'll explain what I did.
Yeah, we should also talk about the decorator.
Oh, right. Okay, so we kept, throughout the code, through the test and the code, I see it as self.players -1. And that, whenever.
Not intuitive.
Yes, the last player is always the dealer, at least the way that the code is written. But it's not clear why this one is important. And so I wanted to make it so that it's easier to say like, okay, because the dealer has specific behaviors, I wanted to say like, let's call it out. Since the dealer is not the same as all the other players, even though its position is -1, or the last one. So I really wanted to call out and say like, the dealer is important. So that's what, if we were to ignore the property thing, that's essentially what this does, right? So it's saying whenever we call this function, give me the player at -1 position. When we add the property attribute, it enables us to interact with the dealer without putting the parentheses here. Because even though it is a function, now it just acts like a property or an attribute of the class. And One other way people talk about this is like a computed attribute, because it changes based on the state of the class. Good question. Any other questions? Yeah.
Considering the book showed up with two players specifically, shouldn't we create a test that specifically relies on multiple players?
I think so. You want to try to drive that? Sure. Awesome.
All right. It's off. It's disabled, so it should be off. Do we have the output for for when the terminal is running? Because let's take a look at. No, we don't. Okay. Okay, let's try and replicate the test case then. So let's just quickly in the terminal first thing, because we have the code that can run. Let's try and run this. Yeah. How many players? 2. Hit enter first, and then stand. Hit enter again, and then stand again. All right, so we have our case. Let's take a look at what the output for all of them are. So scroll up to player 1, please. Yeah, so they're entirely different. It's not evaluating, it's somehow bypassing the checks right now, because it's just spitting out wins.
Yeah.
Okay, I think our issue is somewhere in the evaluation itself. Yes. Yes, let's. Exactly. Definitely, I think that's where we should start. Where's the logic for the for evaluating winners?
It's at the end of the play function.
Okay.
What is it called? Oh, wait.
It's at the end of the play function. Keep going. There.
Okay, for player and self players. Well, that's the problem right there. It should break the entire loop once a player wins. First of all.
No.
Let's see. If player score is greater than self.player score.
So each player can win against the.
Yeah. Each player can win against the dealer. That's true. You can't have a possibility both of them score better than the dealer. Which it's 10 and Jack and 4 and King. So that's a score of 20 and 14 versus the 4 of the dealer. So actually that's perfectly valid for both players to win. Okay.
But only if they beat the dealer.
Only if they beat the dealer. Because the dealer should be trying. That's the problem. The dealer isn't hitting. Dealer hits, dealer hits. Oh, yeah, actually, no, that's a valid game state. Because the dealer hit 19, one of the players had 20. That's true. Player 2 shouldn't have won. Evaluating. Oh, I know why. Because player 2 is evaluating before the dealer. Where does the dealer run their hit logic?
Why is it just the LSAT player score greater than self players -1 best score, blah blah blah, you make that dealer player?
Yeah, that's a great idea. It'll add clarity. Anywhere it's explicitly mentioning players -1 just replaces dealer.
Yeah, it's 4.
Yeah, it's. Okay, that's a bit clearer. All right, anyone want to volunteer taking over on mine? All right. Guess I stand for a little longer.
Maybe I missed something, maybe it's different on lines fix, jack.py. Is that line fix?
It is line.
What are those?
If they're relative to where versus cursor is.
Okay, so line 234 now. Great, great, great. Was that a different players -1?
Nope. That's the same.
That's just,
It is.
it's looking for players. This way to phrase that is players that aren't the dealer.
But dealer and using against themselves. This is just reporting in game stuff.
What could we call them? Active players?
No. Because that's already.
Units?
And not sure, considering that, I don't know, maybe there's a possibility of integrating player AI into it. Gamblers, rename to gamblers. The dealer's never betting, after all, but
And now, so here's a perfect example, gamblers, open, close parentheses, but we have a refactoring where it's in the property.
okay. Let's see what else.
That's not the new one that you created, Chris. That was to create the dealer being oh wait, no, that's a slice. Never mind.
Actually, scroll back up to dealer.score, to the score function in dealer, please. Yeah. Okay, score in dealer's hand, reveal cards equals self hand. If, okay.
Scroll back to the normal play first. Before full player and self-tag gamblers, for a line before that, self.dealer.current equals true. And that might fix our scoring issue.
Okay, let's run it again to see if that'll work.
But that's hard to see.
Is it? Okay. All right, so what we should do?
Stand them both. I don't think it's inherently related to empty input. Dealer wins, player 2 wins.
What? Yeah, that's right.
Dealer 1 over player. Where did the dealer get? Dealer got 17. Yeah, so the dealer beat player 1, but
Because it automatically outputs dealer wins if whatever is the current player doesn't beat the dealer.
If either the player.
Yeah. Which means we might want to decouple the dealer check from
If
this.
the dealer gets the same dealer, if the
Yes. I believe house always wins.
You just get back.
All right.
actually pretty good. They try to see it then. There, right, yeah.
Nobody went to this.
Okay. Okay.
We could go.
All right. So what I would like to do is, before we do this players loop there, on the line before the players loop,
Okay.
I would like to sort this self.gamblers. So let's use a list comprehension. So
Okay.
bracket, square brackets.
So, let's see.
Or actually, I think we can do so let's do self.gamblers. Get rid of the square brackets, I think.
Okay.
And around that, do sorted method and pass self.gamblers into sorted. And then go back in one. And we're going to add the sorting function, I think, is go left once.
Okay.
And then comma, sorry, no. After self.gamblers,
Okay.
self.gamblers, comma. And I believe key, is key correct? To add like a unique sorted sort key.
Key, first sort 10.
Sort. Key equals, and then it's lambda, bracket X.
No.
Right, lambda X.
Bowling. And then we're going to do player.score or x.score. Okay. Yeah. Sorted returns and iterable. Okay, so grab the sorted, is that minimum sorted to or max? It's minimum, right?
Yeah.
So add the reversed keyword dot comma reversed true or reversed true. It's true. Okay. Now do square brackets after that and get this 0, the first index. So this should give the winner of the players. What happens if the winner gets the 10th point?
Every player is playing against the dealer, not against each other. Okay. Sorry.
All right, so save that as, yeah, winner or highest player. Maybe highest player is more appropriate.
Highest gambler.
Yeah.
So I'm curious why we're going for sorting the players.
Flip a score, so you have to do like a loop the players first. But then if they have the same score, it kind of breaks down a lot.
Actually, this shows some promise to it, in particular because the first thing you can do is, though I would suggest expanding it to sorting the entire group, so you can just, you basically would remove all this logic, but you could sort for the highest player, and if that highest player is the dealer, then the dealer wins.
Yeah.
But in blackjack, each player is playing an individual game against the dealer. So sorting the players doesn't tell you who
So then
won.
it was valid when multiple players won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we solved my assumption being wrong. Play blackjack. So yeah.
And I was just thinking that would be a way to simplify logic for solving with the dealer. Verifying if the dealer's score is higher than both the players, just cut the logic. Right, that makes the player.
You know what happened there in that case? Oh, well, that was.
We still have to compare each player to the dealer.
Yeah. But in the case of the three player 20, the other 14, the other got 19. So they shouldn't have both won.
Correct. Okay. But sorting them doesn't actually get us to there, analyzing the logic in that. PFL.
Something's not to work though.
I always look up how to do it.
Lambda functions are fun.
And that's the question, Chris. Sort from the valid thing. Sorted in turn copy, where sort will lose in place. But I can't remember if that's like dot sort.
Not to work.
Yeah, that's dots. This
In place.
in place.
But and I assume the key will land that. It's all the same.
It's all the same.
Now, somebody asked, I wanted to make sure, so lambda is essentially like a function, like this is essentially a function without doing all the def and everything. So many times you'll see this where you're saying for every gambler in gamblers, so that becomes the gambler, so gambler got score. There are other ways to do that as well. You may see, I think it's item getter. People will import an item getter, and as opposed to doing this lambda, so they could just say item getter parentheses score. So
The joys of functional programming.
yeah.
Like the season of Halloween.
From that, let me pick my name and tell you. Chris and I worked on the scoring, and there's two more that can be fixed so that we're evaluating the scoring because of the tests. So you scroll up, I guess, on that Jack. On the right side. Yeah, those two functions mirror the function of the function. They should be refactored.
I don't understand anything, sorry.
And can you scroll up a little bit more? Like that. Or maybe down, sorry.
Yeah, give it that big test issue.
Maybe it's below that. Keep going. There we go. So test the player with the same score. This sets up the thing to be able to test whether or not the dealer and the player have the same score. You can use that same exact logic to make the other two tests above that working.
But first, I suggest getting rid of this function because it's not going to do anything. Figure that was trying to fix the issue that we fixed but never tested.
Sorry, I'm still lost. You're saying when you say the logic in this function,
Just assert this one, assert fail, that you're saying that Dylan.
Yeah, make those two functions look like that bottom one. So that we can test players with a lower score or higher score.
okay, I got you, because they're not initial deck and
Yeah,
setting
yeah,
up the
that-
game thing. Okay. So yeah, just copy that and paste it.
This is so.
So,
Could you undo your paste, because you pasted over the cards over there, so it's fine.
All this is changing one of those hastes to the king.
Oh.
yeah, sorry, I'm still lost.
You got a ten. This would be the first player, then this would be the dealer.
First two cards do, the last two cards in the list would be
So the 10 and the
if
8.
there's 11.
Okay.
Which means for the players in the school.
Is it because our game has a year?
So we want the dealer to have a king and to check if that's true. Are we already doing that?
Yeah, you gotta fix the insert statement.
Okay, so player score is less than dealer score.
Be the 230, yeah, 239, 240, those 2 points.
And then mess up the test when you get rid of
These two?
them. No, the initial cards that have.
Yeah.
Those execute without anything.
What tested once? Later in the
But we switch the direction.
Oh.
Come on. Maybe you don't have all that skin.
that, yeah, that.
Oh, look.
So we have 20 and 18 for.
Yeah.
So we're saying that.
I'm okay with that.
So this is an understanding question for me then. Just double checking the assumption. So if we don't tell how many players there are when the game initializes, it just automatically assumes 2?
It assumes 1.
Assumes 1.
And then
And adds the dealer. And the dealer is always,
so if you go to the definition or the
Yeah.
function of the game. Yeah.
yeah, that's where I was just kind of checking on it.
It's going to fail first. The search statement.
So, dealer score is not even 20.
So is it the other way then? How do we have the game set to deal now? Yeah, let's go back and see. Yeah, in our the initialized game, I think, right? That is. All right. Initial deck, okay. List, okay. We got that because we gave it. Don't worry about the Joker stuff because we are giving it. Shuffle. Shuffle. Is that happening 160?
Keep running.
So if there's initial deck, okay. But overwrite deck if we're testing, if initial deck. and clear.
So I could get rid of all the cards and then just make the entire deck just the initial thing that we passed in.
Okay, so the card shuffle is happening on the full deck
So,
from the deck.py, but then the
When the test we do.
163
Just
that
a little clarity on this. Set of cards is a deck object, and the reason that we're doing a clear and then an extend is because we try to do like an array replace and.
Yeah.
So.
And the capital D deck is a lowercase d q u e deck. That's all it is.
okay. All right, so this is just refreshing for me since we are doing the test. Then 163, that's true there. So it is using the initial deck that we're doing. Okay, so then where does the self.players the get hand function? Okay, append. Where's the get hand?
2 functions down.
2 functions down. Okay.
This might be the most productive question I think. Why is the deck implemented as a deck, considering kind of the full cards that were the stack before this time?
Deck is a stack for Python purposes. It's double-ended queue, but there's not really any alternative to a double-ended queue. So it's just slightly more efficient than a regular list. Pulling the card, pulling from either side of this.
Self-variety and range of players. And so get hand is deal. Okay, so we have to see what the deal function is. Deal, hand, append. Just can you scroll down a little bit more? What I'm trying to find is where in the logic, and I'm sure it's right there, right in my face, is where does it say give player 2 cards? Like pull 2 cards off the deck, basically.
So it's player 1,
Yeah.
get hand.
Yeah.
Get hand gives you 2 deals.
And
Um,
deal is
Deal is.
pull off the top.
So this is right here. So this is a list.
Or you play.
This is a list convention.
Yeah.
So it's saying for each player,
Yeah.
I'm going to for each ID, I should say, we're recreating the players. This creating a list of players.
Yeah.
So we're going through
For each
number that says there's 3 players.
Yeah. for each item, get to hand, get the hand, and then move forward one. And I guess that's the get hand thing I was missing, where it says get hand is deal 2 cards. And deal means pull off the top of the deck.
Cards is is that a deck thing?
I didn't the first time either, after doing like 3 laps or something.
So do you want to go back to this dot card? So,
Cards
there's
that
a
deal.
command or put a command and click on.
So what you're doing is looking in the deck.py for where deal is. Okay. DQ pop.
Okay.
Deal from bottom equals, okay, but it's not deal from bottom, we just did deal. And does that mean pull from the top of the list? Is that what that means? Okay.
Should be right.
So if it is,
So this is reverse.
so is that what's going on then?
These are these.
So actually, using the logic in there, okay, because. So what it's actually. So the dealers is first.
So I think understanding the deck,
Yeah.
because when you're playing the game, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter everything. They're supposed to.
So, third line
Yep.
is visible,
Mm-hmm.
if you just use a slice of your version of the initial deck, then that will allow them to be pulled
In the test. Okay. Because then what it's doing in our code here, we're now saying if we pass an initial deck, when you populate it for your testing purposes, flip the order of whatever you give it. Okay. Okay, let's try it. Anyone want to go up and ask questions? I don't want to answer it, but if anyone wants to go up and ask questions. Actually, the needed.
You just do command F. Or game last time game. Yeah. So then scroll down. So this is that's the slice operator. And so what I did there is that the first number, so if you add a slice onto the end of a list, it will create a new list using that list. You'll create, I want a new version of that list. And the first number, if there's a number there, would be what index to start at. So if you started at 0, would be the beginning of the list. But if you remove it, if you don't have a number there, it's just going to be beginning of the list. And if you at the end number, you'll use that, or if you use, or if you don't have a number there, you use the end of the list. So when I had the and then a -1, the last number is the skip. So how many between each iteration, like how do I go through the list? In this case, when you write it like the -1, it ends up just going through the list backwards. So that it's kind of an easy way to reverse a list, but you could also just have like list.reverse as well, which is more for me.
When typing the console, I think you shouldn't need to do a print statement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so for example, it was typed list.
Yeah, okay. So it gave it a list that said it was ABCD. Just print it normal, print ABCD, but if we put in our slice, it would work.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's say in a range we did. Let me turn that into a list first. We can think. What was it?
We can find out.
I think that it was.
Yeah.
Each one more.
Yeah.
You feel this comprehension. X for X, X for X, and each time.
Yeah, and it also need to this, the dance here, and this is my first, I'll start from the author when from step.
Okay, so this is showing that you started at, if you start at 0, it would go to there. So if you have if you have one number here, you can change out where. And if you have the next number here, you can change where it ends. Then if you have a number here, you have 1 or 2, then you can show it skips by 2, it skips by 3. If you add a negative to it, it will go backwards. That's first. If you have a negative 1, it will go full range of the list. And another thing about Python is that you can use negative numbers. So if you just wanted to cut off the end of the list like this, that will remove the last element of the list, or if you want to remove 3 elements. So then you're in. So Python lets you do that.
Yeah.
Alright, we're gonna stop it here. I don't wanna apologize, I feel like there was a lot of blank stares, and I feel like there was a lot of confusion about stuff on this one. So I'm definitely looking for feedback for this perspective. He's gonna pull up the repo, and I made another branch that you can cruise on your own later if you want. Would be rare. Sorry.
I don't remember it.
But real quick,
Change the system.
I have a single player class, and you can see I have, if flag grip is the dealer or not. Checking the deal cards. So that's kind of much shorter than the 2 different things. And then the game, I have this print player summary function that just takes care of that one chunk, so that the actual play loop is much shorter. So it's, introduce the player, set the current player to true, then either get the action from defined actions or ask the player the next action, which will either, depending if it's a dealer, prompt for an input, or it will automate the dealer's logic. Then just the hit logic, stand logic, invalid request, and we'll just keep looping and then give another summary at the end of the game. So it just kind of made the play function a lot less complicated just by breaking things out. And that was kind of what I was hoping to get towards today. GitHub/FireVA/Blackjack, and then you can just look at the BDC solution. my initials. If you didn't get that. If they're all on Discord.
Speaking of, do you have a QR code for the Discord? It's on the hierarchy.org website.
Yeah.
There's a direct link to it.
Oh, yeah, you committed that.
But
Committed, yeah.
Well. Are you on Discord already?
Yes.
Just do a search.
Discord.
Not much. Yeah. So there should be a perpetual invite link that works. Yeah. So yeah, apologize for all the confusion and mystery on this one. Any suggestions on things to do for future coding nights would be appreciated.
Maybe smaller projects, because you've been so involved in this, it's hard to dive.
Yeah. One thing Chris and I were also trying to experiment on is what happens if we do ensemble coding over a couple different sessions on the same project. Also allowing us to do slightly larger projects, but clearly when we're at this level, like Chris can't even figure out what to do with it then. Yeah. It seems like such a simple game. It is. Thought.
We'll just rebuild conflict. Available.
Making a prequel. Yes.
You're very fun. That's been when they were doing something like half-life, like installed.
Well, with that, I would start retrospective. So if anybody has written their anything on posting, hand them to me and I'll put them on the board. Or otherwise, this would be a great time to write. It's just gonna be. Okay, good. Go ahead. They're all. Besides that, first of all, thank you all for coming out tonight. I don't think I said that earlier. We are sponsored by JetBrains, makers of iCharm, and they have given us a free 1 year's license to give away. So is anybody interested in a 1 year's license of iCharm? 2 people? Anyone else? 3? All right. Let's go to Rand that over.
Like good software.
There we go. Okay, so we have. Wait, here 3 people, right? Raise your hand. All right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that is.
Good question.
We're using it.
It's this program which allows you to, it's essentially, let's write Python. It has a lot of intelligence and stuff like that with it.
It's a pretty, it's a good, it's sister tool, IntelliJ. Yeah, right.
Have a free.
They do have to
Yeah, like it's version without having to get a different license.
Yeah. So they have a free version, which just has like the what they call professional version has a lot more things like they've got database stuff that you can, if you have a database, you can use things like this. Yeah. So many people can use the free version and get full.
What we did tonight was all free version stuff, right?
But also, the license, right, works on all the JetBrains products, so if you, use one of their other products, you can use that too, like, use their IntelliJ, which is their Java. Are you telling me that this is a license for all of the other stuff right now? Yes, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Well, and single,
For single phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they would do like a thing like that. So these are the things that you get with the program.
Mouse interpreters, web dev assistants, vectors.
So yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Interpreters.
So who's interested in free license? 3, 4. Okay, so go 1, 2, 3, 4, and
What do you mean by free?
the cat that lasts a year.
Oh, that's 1 year.
Interested?
And then probably be your email.
Too much.
Yeah, like I got a free, when they functions, they gave me a free coupon, I didn't use it, redeemed it for 11 months. Or actually, no, I'm sorry, I redeemed it at the very end, because it was only valid for like 3 months, so I redeemed it at the end of the 3 weeks, and then didn't use it till the 11th month, and then I got booked, because it's so amazing. So you can download the community edition.
you can always come back next year and keep winning.
That's true. That's true.
Or we give one away at each lecture night. Two twice a month, right?
No, once a month. We haven't. So we have 4, is that right? 4? 4? All right, so number 1. You win. Yeah, you get second place. Number 4. You get what you do. Cool. Anybody else have any observations? Rock on the thinking. All right. And so these are opportunities that folks to learn and grow. So,
Hey, Chris, can you make sure you get the lapel mic? So we can advertise all of our blunders,
yeah,
my blunders.
like the, yeah, I think that when the people I've learned how to do ensemble work, they said one of the best things, usually do as part of a team. And they say one of the best things you can do as an ensemble member is tell the shortcuts, because like the whole team gets to learn and everybody gets to grow, make things, have more fun, take advantage of their, whatever they're using, whether it's Refactoring or Refactoring.
Notepad.
Notepad. ICON in Pittsburgh in May, prices to go? That is a great question, let's go real quick.
Ooh, Brady.
Yeah. So here's the dates for the, most people kind of come for this. The tutorials are usually quite good too. And then they have a job fair last day. And then sprints, which is essentially people who own open source projects. So, hey, I love some help, here's some things we can do, so it's a great way to contribute to,
projects that you use every day. I'm wondering if they can. And that's the one we looked at.
And there are scholarship options too, right?
That is true.
Anyway, I think it was,
That's what,
650 and 350. Student 75. Okay. That's
Chariots.
regular rate, or what we do early.
early.
Yeah.
So if you can audit a class that you're willing to do a student ID or student email address,
Yeah.
that's very, that's usually all it would be. Student dot email address.
Wait, so if I just leave my own student email from college.
If you still have access to it.
So then, EDU.
And as a member of the Python software community, say that all this money goes to powering Python. So if you feel like you don't want to contribute more money to Python to get it to go and when it saves some money, maybe, sure. But you're the ability of Python.
But you can join the PSF to offset your conscience.
Great question. Discord community, I believe that we showed the link for why we didn't have any other questions about Discord community. No, okay, cool. Because there are a number of rooms on there and things, but.
Yeah. We're trying to get it more active too, so any questions, comments, things that you've seen, we'd love to see it on there too.
Smaller projects? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like I said, we were experimenting with the one. I appreciate that feedback. We have courageous members. Absolutely. Thank you, everyone who volunteered to come up and drive and pick
Or voluntold.
or told. And you have. Oh, thank you. Refactoring is hard. Amen. It is, I think that, refactoring is a term that's thrown around far too lately.
Yeah.
But it's a great skill to invest in.
And it's even harder when you're refactoring code that someone else had an entire day to write. And you're up here in front of everyone trying to figure out what the heck's going on.
Yeah, but that's the job a lot of times.
It is, but hopefully if you're doing it on your job, you can sit in your own desk and like have the time to think without people staring at you.
Maybe you're on call and
Most of the time. Yes.
I liked the exploration of using splice to create reverse lists. Awesome, great. And now thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Expand tests to allow multiple players. Bug shared with 2 players. Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, I think, did we have any tests that covered?
No. Yeah, we could have easily put them in there, but before you get to that point, you at least want to make sure that's working with a dealer versus player because it's the simplest case. But
the one thing that
oh, definitely not. Yeah, and that's part of the issue, like of how you want to write your code. Because I mentioned there's no way to tap into, oh, what is the dealer going to do next given their hand? But that's a piece of logic that's probably important for an actual production version if we were to ever go that way. And I do not recommend that with this code. But being able to test the outputs and go into the internal logic throughout the entire thing is some of the stuff I was trying to address.
One problem with software development is black box testing, the idea of like, you can't really always test everything. It's like, oh yeah, you can't test the dealer's function. You're using library. You can't test that thing. You're gonna go. Things that catch you if you fall. In the event that this does happen. This is the everything else. Then you just do a catch up. Then suddenly, oh, it's all happening. Yeah. It's absolutely failure is an option, and it should be all the way through my software process.
Result buff where both players win when dealer is 21.
Yeah, that needs to get fixed, but if anyone wants to keep going and do a pull request, let me know.
Dealer shouldn't probably inherit player.
Either
Excuse me, yeah.
probably inherent player.
Yeah, I
A
agree.
lot of the structure of the dealer inherently is the structure of the player, and therefore it can probably mutate as needed, but rather than inherit from the parent.
Yeah.
Especially since the dealer is a special, or special version of the player.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, when we left off last time, we didn't have a dealer class. And when I was writing the code to kind of get it to work so we could play it, I had the player class. I was like, oh, I could break out the dealer class just so that's another thing that we can refactor back into a single class. But that was just done for something that we could work on here, but yeah.
We should behavior into its class. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, it's one of the things I was reading the last one, and I was thinking like it might be interesting to see, like I feel like object-oriented programming is such a hard thing to explain to people, but it's like I've seen some things recently. Actually, honestly, the book 99 Bottles of Object-Oriented Programming was an amazing book because it talks about like how you can have these small classes that just kind of bring behavior, and if there's like if there's something like that behaves similarly but slightly different, create another class and have to delegate to those different classes, which is hard to explain out loud, so I shouldn't have gone into all this, but like, yeah, I kind of think maybe there's an opportunity to look at some of that.
And back when we first started, my thought process was just purely a functional paradigm. And then someone said, oh, let's create a class. I'm like, that works too. But yeah. Specifically on that last point, can you bring back up my solution code? Yeah, and then go to jack.py. And then I'll tell you when to stop. Stop. Go up a little bit. So this is the dealer logic, basically. There's a threshold, like that's how it's defined the player, or the dealer has to get to 17. So it assumes that you're going to stand. And if you're not the dealer, then it's going to say, hey, what do you want to do? Otherwise, it's going to say the dealer has to do it, and it just returns the action. And then this could also be used, I played around with the idea of having like, question of how many players and then how many humans. So you could automate like having 20 players playing at the table when it's just you. So you could say there's 20 people, but only one of them is human.
Right.
Um, so. But. Yeah.
Well, that's about it for what we have tonight. And you can't stay here. I have my sister is willing to stay here if she needs to go, but there are places to hang out afterwards at the